Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, was a guest of the enlarged National Economic Council meeting in Aso Rock. That was back on the 22nd or so. And he, you know, as a partner in Nigeria, by which he means, you know, the foundation he and his wife, you know, run, it's all about improving the quality of lives of all peoples. Now, that's a theme that we also, you know, are sort of working on ourselves, because you recall that, look, just about a week later, on Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's birthday, we, you know, the colloquium theme was investing in people. Now, Bill Gates' central plank is that Nigeria will only thrive when every citizen is able to thrive. If you had to put it into one sentence, Nigeria will only thrive when every citizen is able to thrive. Now, since that speech, it's generated a lot of debate, in some cases resentment, in some cases kudos. And so we're asking the question, is Bill Gates being misunderstood? Was he misunderstood in his speech and his attitude and his aspirations and hope for Nigeria? Well, we've got two guys who are very, very interested in these kind of discussions. Honorable Tunde Olatunji is an economist and he's a member of the Osun State House of Assembly. Glad to have you again.
Thank you. Good morning. It's
Indeed,
good to be
you're very
here.
welcome. And Dr. Dan Ekere, who is a lecturer at the University of Lagos. Dan, thank you very much for coming on again.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
Yeah. Well, first of all, to grab at you, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is doing all that I said and more. But when he was a guest at the enlarged NEC meeting and he spoke, as people are saying, cliche form, truth to power. Since then, are you surprised at the controversy and the, you know, widely disparate opinion that, in fact, it even went as far as some people remembering, for God's sake, that he was a dropout from university anyway. Are you surprised at that?
Well, I'm not really surprised. I'm not surprised at the turn, you know, of events.
A bit hostile.
The kind of discussions that surrounded his speech and everything. Now,
but was he misunderstood?
I do not think he was misunderstood, except whoever felt he was misunderstood is perhaps the one who actually misunderstood him. You know, otherwise, all that he has said, I don't see anything that is really new there. Neither do I see anything that is out of tune.
Okay.
All that he said. The man was simply making a point with respect to how we have fared so far and how we can do better. Don't forget that this was a man who made a lot of research.
Yes.
All right?
He was quoting...
He compared Nigeria with some countries. Brazil is one of them. And he tried to look at their budgetary allocations for education for quite a number of years, for several decades. While the rest were moving upward, Nigeria was rather moving backward. In some cases, stagnated. In some cases, even less than, you know, what they did in the previous years.
And these are statistical facts.
Yeah, at the time you put everything together, it was shocking that it was not even up to what some of these countries put into their education system for just 1 year.
Yeah.
We're talking of a period of almost 40 years.
Because
right?
one thing that they have...
Now, this is not the man who was just talking for the fun of talking. He had facts. And these things can be verified.
Indeed.
So having looked at these things, he felt that there was a better way to handle these things. And that was why he brought about all the issues that he raised with respect to human capital development, infrastructure, and all the rest. Because even in talking about investing in infrastructure, you still need a competent human capital to be able to maintain them. Assuming you import the resources, whatever, and you put them in place, you can't continue to import those who will maintain them. You need to have them. And until you have a competent hire, you cannot manage other things. So there wasn't anything new in it. And in any case, for a man to have invested several hundreds of millions of dollars in a particular place, you must, I mean, give it to him that it should be somebody who is an interested person.
In fact, some people even go as far as saying
because
billions.
I'm just
billions.
wondering how many Nigerians have actually on their own invested such money in the kind of project.
Okay.
We're not talking about setting up a company now where you make profits.
Yeah.
This is something that will not benefit him in terms of cash. But he has done that to Nigeria. And the amount of money he has invested in Nigeria, there are Nigerians who have that kind of money. But how many of them have actually parted with that kind of? So you should give that man some, I mean, so the question of whether he was a dropout and those are just ways of trying to be sarcastical about the whole thing. Okay,
Tunde, speaking some uncomfortable truths to us, I don't know why they will be uncomfortable because they're true anyway. He said Nigeria, for instance, is the most dangerous place to have a baby, you know, and that the mortality is very, very high. You know, Nigerians who can afford it have this penchant for going abroad to deliver their babies when they can, whether it is Australia, whether it is US, whether it is UK. They just feel that even when our president was ill, you know, there are those who made the case for, what is that Aso Rock clinic all about? And all of that and all of that. So these are uncomfortable facts that he was bringing out. And I wanted to bring it back into the context of Nigeria will only thrive when every citizen is able to thrive. Able to thrive. That is to say, they want to thrive but can't because they are not able.
Well, we must commend Mr. Gates for, you know, his interest and investment into the Nigerian society. I mean, someone who we can say is not a citizen, who is not a citizen of Nigeria, doing that great. I mean, we must commend him. Having said that, we must also understand that he's been generating a lot of controversy, not because, just like the other person said, not because he has really said something new, but because it's not all about the message, but equally the messenger.
Yeah.
And that is why he's pushing so much. If the richest man in the world is talking, people like, I mean, he should have an idea of what he's saying.
Of course.
And there's no crime or there's no harm in, you know, preferring imported solutions.
In terms of understanding our unique situation in Nigeria, that is where some Nigerians perhaps will feel that they are more expert in that.
And that's where I'm going. Even if you are going to import a working model from any part of the world, there's no crime in that. But it must be properly domesticated for it to be effective. Every society differs on its own. And I'm going to start. Even the United States of America itself, when America was going to jumpstart its economy from being agrarian to a developed one, the two things it focused, which was, as at that time, a clear, you know, a directive of the government of America over 100 years ago, was to say, number one, we're going to invest in infrastructure. Number two, we're going to develop a banking system, because that's the backbone. Those were the two things that America started with. America itself did not start with health, investment. It did not get to where it is today without investing in what we call public goods. And, you know, the best way for the citizens to flourish, which I agree with them, is to create the enabling environment.
Thank you very much.
Where people can play and play.
I want you to launch, and then I'll come to Dan also. What should we be doing? Because we've always had this desire to provide an enabling environment. So what is working against that? Because it seems the logical, sensible thing to do. Surely it can't just be down to, as our people say, crass wickedness.
No. Well, you know, one thing about his position, which I quite understand, that he did not only highlighted the problems we are facing as a people, and we must also get it so rightly. He's not actually talking about Nigeria's problem just today alone. Mm-hmm. That is a reflection of the kind of society we have built over the years. Otherwise, I mean, it shouldn't be a problem.
And that we are working at.
That we are working at. And that is why I appreciate Mr. Vice President's comment the other day. He's even right there. He admitted that we understand some of these things, and these are the challenges we are equally facing. And I'll give you a very good example. 2018 budget for South Africa, that's 1.94 trillion rands. You put that in Naira time, we're talking of over 54 trillion Naira. That's what South Africa is spending in 2018 on 55 million people on the average. Then you have, if you put that in a conservative estimate, that is more than what Nigeria has spent since 1999, up till date, including the present budget. Nigeria with 180 million people. Nigeria with 180 million people.
Yes.
We budgeted 7.4 for last trillion, which is the budget that is running. And I tell you, that budget is even a deficit budget, which means we are not even productive enough to fund a less than 8 trillion naira budget as we speak. Then if you put that in the other perspective, of that same amount South Africa is spending, over 700 billion rands is going into basic education. You put that in Naira time, that is more than what Nigeria has spent in the last 6 years, entirely. That's what South Africa will spend on the budget. What exactly are we saying? The productivity of the nation is very key, and it's very critical. And that's why Mr. Bill Gates said something. He said, I'm sure you are uncomfortable with some of these blunt truth I'm saying, because we begin to wonder, where do I even get resources to do this? And he said something which is very clear. a government is as good as the money it makes. That's what it can spend on its people. He said, so if your country is equally at the bottom of tax to GDP ratio in the world, which is 6%, you are being followed by Bangladesh, that is equally doing 10%. I know you are going to have problems to fund your basic needs. So, you know, we must admit that what he pointed out, they are real facts. There are things we need to do. We must equally understand that the starting point is not just for us to wish away our problems. We must come with the solution that is applicable. And that is why you talk about how do we get it. The resources that we have, we must understand that we must jumpstart our economy. Yeah, but the resources will be there. And there must be accountability to make it function effectively. It's a shame that this is the time Nigeria is talking about fixing power. This is the time we are talking about fixing electricity, which other countries of the world we are taking for granted. But I can tell you, and I give you a good example, even for education to function very well. I'm very happy that I'm sitting with someone who is from one of the best universities in Nigeria today. I'm sure without proper electricity, research will not go on properly effectively. You cannot have, there's some equipment that for you to have good result of your research, power must be there 24/7. And so can you even have breakthrough researches and a functional system without electricity? You cannot have those things. You talk about the investment in basic goods is key to drive all of this.
Indeed it is. Thank you very much. Now, Dan, the problem here is that all these are known, and we didn't arrive here just yesterday. It's been a long-standing problem of misgovernance, if you want, and now there's an effort, perhaps in recent years, to address this problem. There was a time when we had the attitude, God bless General Yakubu Gowon, our problem is not money, but how to spend it. There was a time when we were speaking like that. He might not have been dead serious as if speaking in a university, but those kind of sentiments were there. But since then, we've begun to try to pick up the pieces. Not everybody is pulling in that same direction, but we've had this attempt. Now, there are those who are resentful of this kind of a move to fix it because that would disrupt the status quo. Do you think that is an important aspect of the problem, or is that a minor one that can be overridden with political will?
Well, thank you, Yuri. I think it is as important as every other thing that we are discussing. Now, the question I've always asked is that, is it that we do not really have people who are genuinely committed to the progress, the development of this country? And if we do, where are they? Now, those who give all this background before getting into power, having got to power, what changes this attitude in them? You know, when you look at everything that happens around the corridors of power, and the kind of life we found those who have been there living, you find out that much of what we find is something that is systemic. You know, you might have a genuine intention of wanting to do something. I remember clearly, there was a statement sometime when George Weah was busy funding Liberia, to World Cup and all of that. And some persons raised this issue before some Nigerian footballers. And I remember a comment one of them made. He said, okay, why should I bring my hard-earned money to fund Nigeria when the ones they have raised that are enough to fund them, somebody is pocketing it for nothing? So that is the kind of attitude that we find as a result of the attitude of those who have been in power. Now, you need to ask, is it that they don't have a concept of what is good for everybody? They've traveled wide. They've seen these things elsewhere. Now, the little resources we have they been well plowed into some of these projects? And where they fail to, what happened to them? Because they are the makers and the executors of the laws. At the end of the day, laws don't take effect in this country. And that is why you find out that what is happening today, people do it with impunity. All right? Now, it is this level of impunity that has actually brought us to where we are. It is not because we don't have an idea of what is good for us. It is not because we've not raised resources that can at least put us to a level.
And it's not because we don't have plans, because I remember APC's, what is it, their roadmap. They showed us a roadmap.
They have always been planned.
They have always been planned.
Yes, but you see, the attitude towards this plan has been very deficient. the attitude towards this plan.
Tunde, you wanted to say something there because
you talk about plans.
Yes.
From we have
we have 2020. We have 20. I mean,
exactly.
several
And
visions.
and when this political dispensation was to come on board, there was a time when we were given the sort of, it was just like an agenda. Say, look, this, if we get into power, is the roadmap of how we
But part of the problem again
redeem
is
the country.
This hypocrisy around the corridors of government.
Okay.
You see, because you find maybe a governor or a president who has a particular plan and who would have perhaps, spelled out what he wants to achieve and how perhaps he intends to achieve it. And the next thing is that, because this man will not go to the grassroots, he will be at every point at the grassroots. Those that he will dictate to do some of those things, will just, they always fence him off, telling him all manner of sweet stories about the system that in some cases, they don't even know what is happening. In some cases. Now, but I expect that at least whoever is committed to some of these things should be able to step out of that normal comfort zone and see what is happening for yourself. And in some cases, look through what is happening in the newspapers. You will see a reflection of how the people feel. And that will be able to guide you. Because I remember that, some time ago, was it 2 days ago or so, I listened to one of our Obasanjo's interview. And the man said something that a few things happened with this comedy and what have you, and that there was something he learned from it, and that gave him another look about life. That perhaps apart from food, and for him, he described both food and health as one body, because good food will necessitate good health. So he put them together. He said, apart from that, the next thing you should be focusing on is education. Because everything about infrastructure and all the other things...
When people like President Obasanjo speak like this, when people like President Obasanjo speak like this, I know, but I just wanted this, you were talking about hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's what now I'm coming to that. Now, part of the challenge we have is that we've been very hypocritical about how we manage, state resources. You find out that the one who is out of government will begin to look at some of the issues he had an opportunity to do.
Yes, and didn't do anything.
He began to analyze them with better understanding and all the rest, and yet there was no will to do it as at the time he or she was there.
So that's being a Nigerian.
Yes,
unfortunately.
Part of the problem.
1 second, please. Let me bring in Mr. George. Good morning, Mr. George.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your panelists.
Sure.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori, I don't think Bill Gates was misunderstood. I think some people are just trying to extract politics out of the statement he made. As one who, as a generous person, donates to different economies of the world for certain purposes, he has every right to want to know how such monies are being managed.
Okay.
But one thing that the research of Bill Gates failed to point out is the aspect of mismanagement of funds. He was able to identify where the money should have gone to. The United Nations, for example, recommended a minimum of 26% for a developing country's budget to be dedicated to education. Nigeria, over time, has never gotten to even half of that percentage. So, but that is not the issue, Uncle Yori. The issue is that 10% or 12% or a little percentage that is dedicated to education. How much of it was spent? How much of it was stolen? Dr. Dan Ekere is a university don. When the lecturers in Nigeria went on strike for 9 months, the then President Jonathan gave them 200 billion naira as a bailout. Let them show us what they did with that 200 billion. I'm sure, Uncle Yori, we cannot see what has been done with that money. The point I'm making is that the little that we have dedicated to that sector is not being well managed. That is corruption. And that is why, Uncle Yori, all this while, the main problem that I know we have in this country centers around corruption and mismanagement of public funds.
Sure.
That is why I have come out all this while to support one president who has come out, the very first one who has come out to say, I want to fight this monster called corruption and stealing of public funds. Because that is the major problem we have in this country.
Indeed.
If we don't tackle it, we will not get anywhere. Bill Gates is just saying the truth, but whether he is misunderstood or not is not the issue. The issue is we must fight corruption to a standstill in this country.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Certainly, I saw you nodding to some aspects of it there. Because it's come full circle. Bill Gates, perhaps being, you know, discreet, didn't hammer on corruption, but everything else he said.
But that is not to say he didn't know about it.
Of course.
He just decided
because we must admit that, you know, it's so funny when you see people talk and say, we have been living with corruption. I mean, and fighting corruption is not a big deal. It shouldn't even be on the top of the agenda. I mean, you wonder if we truly understand what we are talking about. There's nothing that has brought us this far, other than the fact that we have failed as a people to be, you know, effective in the little resources that we have had, which would have made us have a better society for all of us to be more effective. And so, for once, Nigeria has never been fortunate to have crops of leaders in the likes of the president and the vice president leading this country, whose integrity is not in doubt. And I wonder what could have been the lot of Nigeria if people like that are not in charge at a time like this, when everything was upside down. It's very easy for anybody to, you know, to govern if resources are flowing. But when things are not even sufficient to meet basic needs, it becomes a problem. Well,
so do we really, how much do we really like ourselves? If this is the kind of thing that we're saying now, corruption is fighting back. What is that? Corruption is fighting back. How? So one begins to wonder to what extent we actually like ourselves and how serious we are about redeeming our country. But please hold your horses, Dan. Let me bring in Mohammed, who is on the line. Good morning, Mohammed. Mohammed, good morning. Good morning, Mohammed.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Good morning, Okuriori.
Good morning, sir.
How are you? How's everything?
Thank you very much for calling in. Good morning. I'm fine, sir.
Yes, and I just want to contribute to this program.
Sure.
Precisely, I don't think if this present government is fighting corruption. I don't think so.
I see. How do you mean?
Are you with me?
How do you mean?
What I mean is, if this government is seriously means fighting corruption, at least you should look at people that are surrounded. What I mean is, this government is not really fighting corruption. If it's fighting corruption, at least you should look at people that surrounded the president. You understand? These are people that are going to central bank collecting allocation every month. Each and every one of them is making 200 million every month. Every month. Look at what is happening in Agri. Look at what is happening. You see,
Mohammed, that statement you just made. I'm sure. Are you telling me you have proof?
What? I beg your pardon?
Do you have proof for the statement you've just made that some people are collecting 200 million every month?
There are so many proofs.
That you have?
Proof. The proof is even your channel, every month, you know, dollar allocation, they don't sell the papers. When they sell the paper, look at the people surrounding. I mean what I'm saying, and I know what I'm saying.
All right, then. So your conclusion is that we're not really seriously tackling corruption.
We are not at all.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for calling in. Appreciate your call. We take all perspectives, you know, because this is the understanding that Mohammed has, and he's even mentioned some, it seems to me, wild claim, but he said he has the proof.
Yeah, but again, really, we need to, I think, to a large extent, Mohammed will be very correct, because it seems that the understanding of corruption by this government is about, stealing by politicians. That seems to be what is placed.
And that's not the entirety of corruption, is the point you're making.
That is just a minute aspect of it, because how many politicians do we really have? The system that operates, it's where these politicians come in, has not been addressed. The civil service. So much goes on in the civil service. What about even party manifestos and whatever that they sell to the public, and at the end of the day they renege? What do you call corruption?
So you're calling, you're thinking of all of this as leakages from the system.
They are all corruption. If you tell me you are going to provide, whatever for me, and I, on the basis of that, surrender whatever, and you fail to do that, that is corruption. So corruption should not be seen as, stealing of public funds alone by politicians.
But you know the way they are going about it is that...
It should go deeper than that.
The way they're going about it is that we... first of all, let me bring in... someone is calling him Idris in Agege. Good morning, Idris. We lost Idris. The way they're going about it is that the way people like you or me might expect this, or indeed Tunde, is that when the administration came on, there would be a zero tolerance for corruption. But then we were made to understand that, look, we have to make haste slowly. We have to work within the rule of law. We see what we see, what we know, clearly, we can't go ahead and just say it like that without courts of competent jurisdiction pronouncing, and we're bogged down. We don't have the legal system that I understand some other people have, where you are assumed guilty and then you come and prove your innocence.
Which is the easiest way to
But what we are doing here is that the thieves are innocent until we can prove.
Ordinarily, it is you that has the so-called, word that is being questioned, that you tell how you got the money.
Yes, but it works in their favor because that's not the way we have.
Are you getting it? That will never be the law. That will never come to be.
We must also know that fighting corruption is not just the job of the president.
It's a comprehensive thing.
We all must be involved. I mean, if it's going to, as a people, we must decide. We must admit that there's corruption in the system. We must admit that our system is faulty. So there's a problem, and so we need to come up with it. You take, for instance, Mr. President cannot, for instance, be the one that will take someone to court. He is the one that will also pass the judgment and a whole lot of that. Yes. And so it's a double jeopardy when a society like ours, that the resources that we have is not even sufficient to meet our needs. Also, still harbor corruption. I mean, it's something
it does harbor corruption because every citizen can see manifestations of wealth, personal wealth, that they know.
When you look at Mohammed's own position, look at somebody like the Attorney General, who was alleged to have masterminded some kind of meetings with Mena and all the rest. And I remember the Senate panel, a lot of questions were asked. The man, denied some letters that he signed and all the rest. And at the end of the day, the things he was even claiming were there.
Indeed.
He alluded to them.
Mr. Dedei in Ikeja, good morning.
But still be condoned.
Good morning, Akuyori.
Good morning, sir.
God bless you, sir. Good morning to the panelists in the house.
Good morning.
What I want to say is something. Mr. Big Gates, the statements he has made, they are very hard. But he was addressing the wrong audience. What do I mean? The people he was addressing, they see no reason for them to take Mr. Big Gates seriously. Why am I saying this? Investing in people, investing in the education of people, investing in the health of the people, how does that benefit them? They don't need that. If investing in the education does not add value to them, their children are not studying here. They are studying abroad. Whether they have any ailment, no matter how, they can always fly abroad to seek help. But the people that are concerned, they are the pharmacists of Nigeria. They really don't matter to our rulers. You see, what these people are under in this country, what they are concerned about is where do we get the maximum amount of money to steal? How are we going to get more and more to, when they give out contracts, they give out road contracts, give out contracts for bridges, give out contracts for some bogus infrastructure. That is where they get their own money. I see in the hospital every day how people die because they cannot afford, 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira with medication. But this must does not concern what they are about is giving infected products. I understand that here is the country where we spend the highest on it.
Mr. Dedei, thank you very much. I get your point. I've got to I'm being hustled onto a break now. So sorry about that. Stay with us. We'll be right back, please. Welcome back. Still have Honorable Tunde Olatunji, economist, a member of the Osun State House of Assembly in the House, and Dr. Dan Ekere, lecturer at the University of Lagos. Our last caller made an interesting point that Mr. Gates was talking perhaps to the wrong people, the wrong audience, simply because all the problems of poverty, those people don't want to hear it because it doesn't mean anything to them. You're talking about education, my kids in the best school abroad. You're talking about food, we eat the best food.
More than enough.
And so on. So a surprising viewpoint that, but that's being cynical about the intentions of our leaders, isn't it?
I mean, the truth is, power is responsibility. And so when people feel that way, I mean, you must be able to just admit it as a leader. But that's not supposed to mean that they are glossing over it. I mean, they are not, they're also a subset, they're also a part of the Nigerian system.
They
also know those things.
That's cynical comment.
But,
that he was talking to the wrong people.
It appears cynical, but the truth is that from evidence, the man seemed to have made a very salient point, because a lot of times these people really don't seem to bother much about all this. Because take, for instance, a president who spent almost how many months abroad on medication. Since he returned, I've not seen any strategic move to say, well, I suffered this kind of a thing, and this was how, you know, the problem was solved. Why not try to put something in place to see that a situation of this kind could be taken care of here? Those who did it in UK are not angels, they are not from the sky, they are humans. And these facilities are affordable. So what would be wrong with even equipping the Aso Rock, hospital, for instance? Let's assume that there is even one that can take care of all these big names that fly abroad for all these things. At least we will save, hard-earned, foreign exchange.
So now, but how about the motive that he cited? He cited a certain motive. He said the average Nigerian in power is not going to do things that are right because they are right without seeing how his pockets can be lined. Now that is thoroughly cynical.
The point is that there are some who are like that, and from the activities of so many politicians, you can say that is the trend. But then you still find a few people who might mean well, who perhaps, for fear of one thing or the other, will not be able to carry out whatever, they are planned. Because now, this corruption thing we are talking about that is being fought, if you look at it very critically, somebody raised a point about how, ASU went on strike and monies were disbursed and the rest. Now, my worry has always been when you release money to somebody to do something for you, I think the onus is on you to find out what has been done, whether whether it was well done, whether the money was actually, put into that project. Unfortunately, ASU that went on strike for this particular, struggle are not the ones who are in position to execute these programs we are talking about. The 200 billion that was mentioned that was released, I doubt if there was any place in any Nigerian university where ASU has to sign a contract. ASU has.
Let me bring in one moment.
That
also relates with
the government.
When someone feels that he's talking to the leaders, he's talking to the wrong person. But that has to do with the responsibility of their office. That's why they are being accused. It's the same thing when someone would say ASU that 200 billion was released to. ASU will not spend the money.
No, the money was not released to ASU.
That's what I'm saying.
It was released to Nigerian universities.
But because ASU is a stakeholder in the education, so people would assume that
that is why
Mr. Ayodele in Ondo State, thank you for holding on. Go ahead, please. Ayodele, Ondo State, good morning. Is it a network or have we lost Mr. Ayodele in Ondo State? Yes, so back to...
Well, I think for me, I would even let us try to...
Ayodele is back.
Ayodele is here now. Good morning, Mr. Ayodele. Go ahead, please.
I'm still on.
Yes, you are on. We're waiting to hear from you.
I am still on, please.
Go ahead. We want to hear from you.
Okay. So my point borders on the president. That is from the angle that I want to approach the issue. Okay. From the point I want to approach this issue is from the angle of our president. Okay. President Buhari and especially this APC government under our president. I see them from an angle of being acrimonious and too vindictive.
Thank you very much. You know, short and sharp. I don't know. Unless APC is changing, he didn't give us details. Yeah, and quite frankly, unfortunately,
it would have been better.
That statement that he made, it doesn't really give us a clue as to whether he's an APC man or a PDP man.
There might even be need for him to explain it
exactly better. But then,
we might not understand
the state that we have come to, that's why I made the point, unless APC has gotten markedly, you know, far away from where we were before, that statement, you can't use that statement that he just made and know his political party. He could easily be an APC man himself.
Well, it could be politically motivated. I mean, not. I mean, everybody's entitled to his opinion. We cannot. We are a population of over 1 million.
But gentlemen, we're coming back to. I think the sincerity of purpose of those charged with the responsibility of governance. That's what is being commented upon now. And well, Reverend Dominic in at least wants to get in on the matter. Good morning, Dominic.
Good morning, Yori. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Good morning, the Don from Unilag, and good morning, the man from the National State Assembly.
Sure. Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Please, Yori, I want to make a comment, if you could allow me.
Sure.
About one of the statements you made 2 days ago.
Okay.
Can I go on?
2 days ago, go on.
Yeah. You were talking about if you want to make money in Nigeria, you have to politics.
Is it not true?
It's not true.
Okay.
Most of us who have been in this gospel for over 30 years. Honestly, it's quite a challenge to me. But that is not the best thing for most of sacrifices were made as preachers in Lagos. Okay, today's issue. Let me say this. In all general, what Brigade is saying. And I fought for APC to be in power. When we were fighting for that, we're not so ignorant that Nigeria will change overnight. But why we fight for APC and Buhari in particular, that attitude of governance will change. But these people, this APC and Buhari in person, have not changed any attitude from the attitude of why we kick out PDP out of government. If anybody was expecting that life will come overnight, those will come overnight. It's not true. We will talk attitude. Let me give you one of the attitudes. I didn't know why Mr. President should go to London and stay almost 3-4 months in hospital and come back. And the wife said he wants to go to ASU clinic, and there was no APC in ASU clinic. And till today, nothing has changed. I wonder why Mina, who was absconded in PDP government, and this Mina came into this government and disappeared the same way. Attitude. This attitude changes. Things change. But this government and APC have not changed from attitude of why we revolt and rebel against PDP. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in, Reverend Dominic. And commenting on your remembrance, what I said 2 days or so ago, that in Nigeria, people think that one of the easiest ways to make money is to either go into politics or establish a church. Now, that was tongue-in-cheek. That cannot be a fact, but it is the street wisdom.
Even if it is
the street wisdom.
No, but let's even assume it is. To go into politics is not cheap.
It isn't, and that's why.
So let's even look at it. There's, two people called in. They said something, and we've been discussing something. And let's extract a pattern.
Yeah.
It shows that now those from the religious cycle now, there's a burden of proof on them.
Okay.
Particularly those that have the right intentions.
Sure.
To prove that, we didn't go into politics for the wrong reason.
Yes.
You can establish that.
Yes.
In the academics, there's need for my colleague here to equally prove that ASU is not stealing money. That's another point.
Okay.
It's the same thing when it comes to
because the federal government knows that it doesn't release money to ASU.
It's the same thing when it comes to governance. So
ASU is just a union.
There's so many misconceptions.
Which goes to the point that you were going to address, that the sincerity of purpose is being called to question.
And there's need for us. I mean, we all need to admit as Nigerians. Number one, leaders must know that you must be accountable to the people. It's not negotiable. It's not optional. Followers must know that there's need for us to be responsible as citizens. And as collectively, we must know that we have a country to build. And there's need for us to respect the need for us to be accountable to whatever resources accrues to us.
Yeah,
I can cite an example.
Sorry, sir. These are fine things that we say, and we've been saying them for decades. Yeah. We have the example of Mwalimu Nyerere, for example, who finished up his, his service, his presidency, and went back to his village, and we see his modest house. It is no villa. It is no villa. So, and the kind of car. So these people, as it were, sacrifice themselves.
We are not even saying that they should. We are not even saying.
We're not saying go to that extent. Yes, we're not saying that.
You could have all the comfort, but just at least let that be the little that the people should benefit.
So the attitude of those we bring into power is so important. Sorry, sir. Let me bring in Yakub, lest we lose him. Good morning, Yakub.
Yakub was not in town.
Good morning, Yakub.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to
Dr. Dan was just wondering whether you were not in town.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Hi. Thank you. You see, I quite agree with the last caller, which is Reverend Dominic.
Yes.
I quite understand his perspective towards the government. You see, usually, yes, we don't expect miracle at the night. Are you getting it? One thing I want Reverend Dominic to understand is this. In fighting against corruption in this country, I can only see Mr. President and the Vice President. Why am I saying that? And then the only one tree cannot make a forest.
Yeah, but that's the point Reverend Dominic was making.
Yeah, it's true. Let me give you a typical example, sir. Yes. You see, we cannot fight this corruption if the judiciary is not among the people that abide to fight it.
Okay.
If the legislative is if they don't want to fight the corruption, we cannot. There's nowhere to go. Let me give you another example, Shivyori. Nigerian citizens, we have missed a lot of chances. Number one.
But Yakub, we elected the very legislative that you're talking about now. We put them there.
Mr. President did not.
In the face of law, we can agree that we put them there. But let me tell you this, Shivyori. Sometimes when they are making a statement in the National Assembly, when they are making the statement in the National Assembly, some of them will say that I'm going to my constituency said this, my constituency said that. But it is not true. They are not coming to constituencies anywhere. Because they are in the locality here, we know what we want. They will just sit down in their offices and say that the constituency said this. Before I forgot what I want to say earlier, usually we miss some chances, sir. The first chances we miss in this country is this. When Senator Shehu Sani make a statement that whereby a senator is getting 13.5 million running costs, usually assuming that the 13.5 million running costs given to Barrister Adani Kerede for the research, I think it will make a long way. And then Nigerian citizens listen to this, and then nothing happen. Our civil society are there, nothing happened. Usually, until Nigerian citizens got up and then they asked for our rights. It is unfortunately we are going to continue with this kind of thing that we find ourselves. Why am I saying that? If somebody can get 13.5 million for running costs, and then the referendum mobilization committee, if I got it right, they come out and telling Nigeria that they don't know how they get this money. Yet, Nigeria still keeps silent. Nothing happened. Whether you like it or not, all this money that we are giving them as a running cost is the same money they will use when the election comes to perpetrate evil and get them back to that office. Because they know the corruption, they know how to play it, and then they know as well that people are hungry in the land because of the perpetration of evil that they are doing to us. Nigerian people should get up. We should be able to protest against this issue because first to protest against that issue, they will continue to get that 13.5 million running costs. And then institution is paramount here. I will look at a situation whereby a police officer or EFCC officer can get a Mr. President arrest and then maybe governor arrest because he perpetrated and then maybe embezzle money. If the institution is not empowered to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Yakub. Thank you very much.
Yakub can give a whole epistle. The fatal.
I mean, he's making sense. I mean, we cannot. I mean, as citizens.
Sir, the point that Reverend Dominic made, I think you also agree with that point.
Yes.
That we were so expectant when the Buhari administration was about to come on, and people like Reverend Dominic and Mr.
He was
Mr.
so
George,
tenacious
so
of his
many
position
people
then.
fought
I remember
for it. But it seems that I don't know. Are we too expectant? Are we forgetting that things that have taken 40 years to decay?
We're coming from somewhere, and you know, Nigerians are eager to get out of that.
Yeah,
system.
because they see a continuation of the same system that was going in the past.
It's not what it should be, no doubt, but it is not also what it used to be. I mean, we need to understand that, and every day is an opportunity to right the wrongs, to make improvement. I don't know.
But at what speed, sir? At what speed?
Don't also forget that everybody admits, including the president and his team itself and the party, that things can be done better. I mean, and there's no doubt about that. But we must also know that we need to begin to make concrete steps and moves that will address some of these issues. I mean, time.
When, sir?
Time, yeah.
I think the question is when. That is the critical question, because we've been saying this thing for decades.
Now, that's what we are saying. It's long overdue.
One moment, sir. You continue this line of thought.
Tomorrow.
Let me bring in Madam Josephine. Good morning, Madam Josephine.
Okay.
Uncle Yori, good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
And your guests.
Indeed.
Good morning, ma'am.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. So.
Yes, we are having challenge. Like, if they say they misunderstood the Gates. The Gates is the right person to tell you the truth, and you should abide by it. He has succeeded in his business, and as a businessman, you need somebody like this to tell you the truth. Look at what is going on everywhere: no security, no job. Wherever you did not invest in human capacity, in human resources, you will keep on having insecurity. When somebody has not fed for the past how many days, what do you expect them to do? This administration has succeeded in bringing more poverty, no employment, no political will to do business. Business is not thriving. I'm a businesswoman, and I'm facing very serious challenge in my business, because there's no political will. No business no country can grow like the way we are going. And they're talking about corruption. This government came into power with so much promise that people look at them and say, we can go forward through these people that say they want to fight corruption. But what is going on? They are worse because of the way they rate them.
But Madam Josephine, did you just say, Madam Josephine, did you just say this administration came on board with so much money? Because what we've heard from them was that they came on board with a virtually empty treasury.
This government came to power in the sense that they are going to fight corruption. But what we are seeing now, hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Where we are getting now, no institution to fight it. They did not build any. We need strong institution. Only one person cannot fight it. Even President Buhari go today, it cannot work. We need institution. And moreover, I'm always saying it. I say when the foundation is faulty, what can the righteous do?
But how about the rule of law? How about the rule of law, which they say we can't ignore?
Let them change that constitution and see if this will not change for good. Now, if you want to vie for political appointment, now you will spend many money. If you want to come to power, if you want to go for election, the money you will spend, that is one itself is corruption. The money people are spending to get into office is too much.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Josephine. I've got to interrupt you now, but really, really appreciate your call. Now, one of the things that comes up from the kind of things she's saying and people before her have been saying, it points to the kind of people that we put in office.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, and
the kind of people we put in
cannot,
office.
We cannot keep talking about the leaders, and we exonerate the followers.
We
I mean,
can
I
exonerate
hear
the
that.
followers.
Because
No,
I hear that.
we can exonerate the
But
followers.
if we put certain kind of people in office,
See, Yori, we
what
can
a man does
exonerate.
not have, he cannot give.
We can exonerate
So that's
the
why
followers.
it's key
On
to
this
look at
particular
the
issue, we
quality
can.
of the mindset of the people that we are sending to represent us at all levels.
I like what Dan is saying.
And also
that
ensure,
on this one
and also
occasion,
ensure
we can
that
exonerate
everybody
the
who has
followers.
something to offer is
Yes.
part of this.
But you
how
see-
they are being governed.
you know,
It's
but
also
you see,
key.
Now,
unless
show
there's a
interest.
radical,
Yes.
unless there's a radical rethink in how we put people in positions of governance, and I don't know how that is going to come about.
Even the
And also,
system, the
which is
system that
something we
brings
need to also
the
begin
system
to
we
encourage.
operate.
People who have something to offer must also be interested in how they are being governed,
Yes.
not operating from the sideline.
Yeah, but even when they are interested,
Not only operate, yeah.
let's even assume they are interested. How do you, assuming they are interested in getting there, how do they even get there? Because when you look at the party system itself, it's another major challenge.
These are the problems.
To what you are now expecting. We do know that there are some quintessential, persons who can deliver in so many areas, but they will not find their way, to the hearts of those who are in charge of the machinery of these parties. Sometimes, for them to get to those places, it will become a major challenge. At least I've contested election, and I remember the kind of comments that came from the political bigwigs in my area. This guy is not going to be somebody who will be able to
They will
bend.
be able to manipulate.
So, because of that, those are the kind of
but
things
we
you
know
find.
that
Now,
it's only resilience that
Now-
makes a man succeed.
Okay.
Yes. You will
At
not
one
say
moment-
because you
No,
attempted to
even
be part of a
okay.
No, even in
business
that, you
and you
come
failed
in-
in that business, you don't want to go again.
No, this one is not
Those
even about
are
failing.
barriers that we must all come together
We
and
must
break.
overcome
A
as
team-
human beings.
You see,
A
there are so
country
many
that
ways
wants
you
to
can
win
fight
the
this
trophy will ensure that right from the time of he selects his best 11 to go to that competition.
That is for selection.
Do we
That is
select
so
best
parties
11?
don't operate like
Exactly,
that.
and that's what I'm
Parties
saying.
don't
And that's what I'm
operate
saying.
like that.
We must not be deterred
Okay.
by the challenges that is with politics.
But parties
And-
don't
one
and
moment,
say
please.
no, we must continue to fight it.
Yes,
Every one of us
in
can come
That's
from
what we are
Amuwo
doing now.
Yeah, so
Good
they-
morning. Tumba.
Okay, those calls that are
Good
coming.
morning to you in the studio.
Yeah,
Good
go
morning
ahead.
to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead then.
Yeah, basically, you guys are doing a good job there. But I'd like to say something, For me, Mr. President has a good intention for Nigeria, but everything still boils down to the institution, Now, I have a problem with the way Mr. President has handled Nigeria, because you need to have a strategy you need to have a strategy on board when you want to govern the country. Now, from the onset of his inauguration, you need to carry up. You need to carry the National Assembly with you. But Mr. President didn't follow up with the principal offices like the Senate President, who was going to be the Senate President, who was going to be the Speaker of the House of Assembly. You needed those institutions, those arms of government to work with him so he can be able to implement his policies. From day one, he got it wrong.
Okay.
Because before you can implement major laws, you need the National Assembly to be on your own side. Now, unfortunately, that is where I feel the fault started from not putting his interest in the legislative. So now, majority of the policies he has to implement, it has to go to National Assembly. You are running a presidential system of government.
Okay.
So even though it makes a law, it has to go to the National Assembly.
All right.
Those members of the National Assembly will frustrate his efforts.
Yeah.
So he's back to square one.
Okay.
He doesn't have the powers to implement any law without going to National Assembly. When we're talking about this $1 billion arms deal he's trying to get to fight insurgency in Nigeria. Now, he still has to go to National Assembly. They can still frustrate that effort. But if he has listened to the advice of Ashiwaju from day one, work with that man. That man is a genius. He's a godsend to this country. If he has listened to that man's templates and has worked with him, appointed good principal legislator, good character men that would have worked with him. A lot of this reform would have been implemented, and Nigeria would have been transformed We would have seen the transformation by now.
Okay, thank you very much, Otumba. I got to interrupt you now, but really appreciate your calling in. As to whether or not this government has a strategy, I'm sure they will be the first to say that, of course, we have a strategy. But did they make mistakes? Of course they made mistakes. Of course, mistakes were made. But the point is, you were making this very point that you've got to get up. You stumble, you fall, you got to get up again and move on and keep on. By now, we've come to realize even the presidency must know that it made a mistake with this whole business about for everybody and I'm for nobody business and all that.
Well, I'm sure
that is a confirmation that the president had no strategy. It's clear. You see, now...
Okay, guys. I've run out of time.
Position, yes. It was clear
I've completely run out of time.
If the man had strategy,
yes,
he would have, before then, had put in place... What is strategy?
It took him nearly 6 months.
Yes, honestly, he would have put in place the personnel that would be able to work with him, both in the National Assembly...
So in conclusion, Bill Gates didn't say anything new.
Neither did he say anything out of...
He didn't say anything new. He reiterated our challenges, and at the same time, it is for us as a people to, come in terms with the reality, work harder, and see how we can make the system. And that's a good example. And again, when we talk about education, everybody seems to think it's only the tertiary institution that we're talking about. But when you start from the
primary,
look at an example.
We completely run out of time. We don't
have time for embrace some of the options that we suggested.
Honorable Tunde Olatunji, thank you very much. Dr. Daniel Kere, thank you very much. I wish I could do 30 more minutes, but you know how it is.
No, you can't.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so that's our program today. See you tomorrow, God willing, with a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.